guys? Matt here. So for Veterans Day, I thought I'd put this little video podcast together here and kind of give a special shout out to my boys in blue, the guys in the Navy. But so for Veterans Day, I thought I would share a little story about something that happened to me when I was in the Navy. I was in the Navy back in the 90s, enlisted in, I went to boot camp in 91, and then got out in 95. So I was in during Desert Storm, and I was attached to a F-14 squadron. We in Virginia Beach, we trained F-14 pilots and Rios and taught them how to, like fly the plane and stuff. And then they would go out to the fleet and be real, grown up, yay, real Navy guys. But So I was right out the gate. It was awesome. Got out of school, got shore duty, although I was on the boat all the damn time because we had to train them how to take off and land on the boat too, right? So, but anyway, one of the times while I was on shore duty, we used to have to do this thing where we had to stand watches over the airplanes because, even though they were these really tough pieces of military hardware, they would literally just break. And could break just sitting there on the flight line and do things like leak a lot of fuel and stuff like that. So anyway, we used to have to stand these watches. So this particular night I was standing, I had flight line watch, and we had a hangar watch, and then there's the officer of the day that's upstairs and the ready room, which is where all the classrooms and stuff was as well. But so I get this phone call from the officer of the day, the OOD, and he says, "Hey, have you seen the hangar watch?" And I'm like, no. Why? And he goes, well, he hasn't reported in, and I can't find him. I haven't heard from him. So I said, well, do you want me to go look for him? And I said, and he's like, yeah. He goes, meet me in the hangar, and the stairs from upstairs kind of came out the same place where you came into the hangar. And any of the guys that have been at VF 101 can kind of tell you this. You go from the flight line to the hangar. So I go into the hangar about the time, and I meet the OOD right there. And we start hollering for this guy, and we can kind of hear him moaning and grunting further down the hangar. And he's like, help. So we go running down there, and I come around the corner. There's airplanes in there, and then there was a space where they had moved some of the jets out onto the flight line. So it was like 2 or 3 spaces were open. So it was a good size area. It's big enough to fit F-14s in. And we find this guy, and he had taken the overhead crane. They had these big overhead cranes that they used to like pick engines up and move them around in the hangar and stuff with. And so he had taken one of these overhead cranes that's in the hangar, and he had run the hook down, and he had connected it to the belt on the back of his pants, right? So in the Navy, in the military, they have these kind of belts. So it's not like a belt like you pull it back and it's got a hole and you put the rod or whatever through. They work kind of like this, and it's sort of like this weird friction mechanism that kind of makes it work. So when you put them on, you got to put them on kind of snug, because the weight of your gut pushing out against this is what kind of makes this thing work. And you can see that when you pull on it, it really digs in. And what he had done was, he couldn't get it off, because it was like buried into his waistband and stuff now, because he had picked himself up by the back of it. And when he did this, he ran himself up high enough that he was just up on the tippy toes of his boots. Well, these hangar spaces are often covered in like hydraulic fluid and oil and things like that. So he slipped, and he's hanging kind of like Superman with an atomic wedgie. And when he slipped and he fell forward, the pendant flew out of his hand. And the pendant on these things is designed so that, you could be all the way, to one side of the hangar or another and be picking something up and moving it. So it's on kind of like a rail system, if you will, right? So the pendant was like 10, 15 feet away from him now, and he had been in the hangar trying to swing like, I don't know, like Peter Pan or something, with this huge atomic wedgie for like, I don't know, like 45 minutes. So when we get to this guy, right, we figure out what's going on, and then we don't let him down, right? We stand there and laugh at him for about 5 minutes, And then ultimately we did let him down, and he couldn't walk very well for a while because it shut off all the circulation to his legs. It's probably a little meaner than it should be, but whatever. Welcome to the military. So anyway, for Veterans Day, I hope you found this funny. It's one of my favorite memories from being in the military. And taxpayer dollars hard at work. So go Navy.